Hi, I'm Matteo Lucchetti. I'm the curator for the show Piazza Universale, Social Stages, the first American museum initiated solo show of Marinella Senatore. And what we see, the first thing that we see from the exhibition is this big mouth. The reference is a character from one of Fellini's movies, Amarcord, this Gradisca, this woman that also embedded all the memories of the characters of the movie. And in this case, this woman is embedding many of the memories of the works that are presented inside the gallery. In fact, the symbols on the face, you see the little factories coming from the Atelier Populaire. They represent Metalloperette. The gate represents the luminaria structure that takes place in the public space of Italy for civic and religious events, and so it's connected to the Monica Street musical, and the flames are more connected to the Spanish work, to Speakeasy, and to the resistance to Franco's dictatorship that the work tries to speak about. If we enter the show, and another thing I want to say about the mouth is that it kind of also it's symbolic for the approach that Marinella always have in her work. So the idea that as one of the participants of the works of Marinella, you always enter almost this amusement park. And as when we were kids and we would go to the amusement park, you would enter one of these machines, and you would test your courage. You would, be a little bit different after. You would feel a strong emotion in the same way in which, Marinella's pieces are conceived, where people, they are never the same again after they did what they do with Marinella for months, participating and seeing a possibility for themselves to be someone else rather than what they were at the beginning. An important aspect that we took care of with the exhibition was to try to create an experience for the audience that was not relying on the documentation of the pieces, or let's say not just on the documentation, but trying to create an exhibition that could work as a new device itself in order to have a new experience of the works. By saying that, I mean that, for instance, you will notice that the editing of the videos is not necessarily following a narrative of the video, but it's more about trying to connect the sound that is changing throughout the exhibition. So every time a work is highlighted by having lights being switched on a specific work, and a piece of the soundtrack of the score related to the piece is playing. Like that, you can sit down, watch the whole film in a classic way, or the way the music is playing and the way the images you decide to look at, they create a live editing of the exhibition that every time is different depending on what you're looking at, or when you're looking at, and why you're looking at it. With Speakeasy is also the piece, the oldest piece that is on show. It was done in 2009, and what we wanted to do was also to show how much in Speakeasy you have all the media that Marinella usually uses. So you have a collage, you have drawing, you have documents, you have wallpaper, you have the video, you have elements that relate more to the participatory aspect of the work. So for instance, you have an LED box with all the 1,200 participants' names that made the film possible by doing a crowdfunding. So it's also an introduction to the practice of Marinella. Content-wise, Speakeasy tries to merge the memory of Franco's dictatorship with an imagery that was coming from Western world in the time of dictatorship, specifically from the US, that was not so accessible in post-war Spain, but at the same time was extremely influential in the shaping of an imagery, or collective imagery. So the way the group that worked with Marinella, the way in which they decided to use the musical was a way to speak about the memory of the dictatorship by doing a musical that at the time of the dictatorship was not possible to see in the cinemas of Spain. So it was trying to convey two different narratives in the same place, and in doing that, putting individual histories, individual stories inside of the film. We reproduce also like this wallpaper that is about the open call that Marinella did in order to call for all the participation of the participants that were co-producers. This is an important thing to stress. And the collages instead were done by Marinella in the mornings after the long hours of work on the set with the participants. And she would try to use all the material that was not being used within the dramaturgy of the film. So all the excess material that she didn't want to lose and she wanted to still keep together, and so that's how the collage came about. The tables were designed by Assemble Collective, a Turner Prize winner, and collaborators for different projects by Marinella. Here we briefly hear the music of Speakeasy that is very nostalgic and melancholic, and it also goes well with the idea how this imagery, these images from the past are floating in the memory of the people that took part to the project, but not only. Talking a lot about post-war Europe and how a new narrative was being formed in a very problematic way. In Metallopérette, instead, it's a more recent work, together with Modica Street Musical. They were both realized in 2016. In this case, Marinella worked with Aubervilliers, with the Laboratoire d'Aubervilliers, an institution that is in one of the banlieues of Paris, a very complex one that was related to factory work, and it is not the case anymore, and that's why that was the starting point for the piece, for the operette, where they addressed the end of the industrial time and all the crises connected to it, the unemployment connected to that. So the operette tries to, of course, compose again in a participatory way, with a lot of participants coming, being a former employee of the factories, protesting about the fact that the factory is closed, but at the same time facing the defeat of not having the factory anymore, and trying to think how life can continue without a job that was granted up to a certain moment in time. The style that they decided to use is very much referencing the operette style, so in a sense like John Gay, Beggar's Opera, Bertolt Brecht, Three-Penny Opera, and the libretto is composed by all the participants, of course, and it also tries to create small slogan-like moments where they can express really the current discomfort in living in this neighborhood, and where old generation migrants are living together with newer migrants, newer refugees, and now the social tension is definitely something that they experience on a daily basis. The whole aesthetic of the libretto is making reference to Atelier Populaire, and the idea is really to try to convey an aesthetic that is popular, that can be immediate, and it can also convey the potential of a community getting together, like it happened in May '68 with the students and the university occupations. There are some elements from the scenography. This was also designed by the participants. And now it's playing a Modica Street Musical. Modica Street Musical light props are luminarie. They come directly from the south of Italy, from the Fratelli Parisi firm in Puglia. And the idea was to try to reproduce the feeling of the scenography of Modica. So the Baroque facades of the churches that became the theatrical background for the two acts and the intermezzo of the musical. And the three parts are basically two acts and an intermezzo, as I said, and they all were featured in one area of the city of Modica, involving 250 inhabitants of Modica. And the first one was dedicated to the present time, so it was a joyous fresco of all the cultural practitioners of the town, dancers, musical school students, retired people, choir, gymnasts, athletes, skateboarder. It was really like also devoted to the younger generation. The intermezzo was more about the storytelling of Modica, how newer generation can get to know about their history, about the time that that they don't know about, and how Modica became what it is today, trying to work with activists, journalists, historians that would recite specific anecdotes of the city of Modica and trying to position, let's say, the city of Modica within its political struggles and its historical issues. The last act was the act dedicated to the possible, not to the future, already subverting this order of things, this normal order of things, because the future is, as Marinella points out, is a time that we don't have any chance to influence. It's always something very speculative, something we don't have any real impact on, while the possible is something that starts from our capacity, the capacity of getting together and the capacity of doing things starting from the skills and the work that we constantly do in our daily life. The possible basically took place in the lower part of the city, and it had an original composition that came out of an open call she did in the town, where people sent all the sounds, let's say sonic memories of the town. Could be a train that is not passing anymore, a song dedicated to the saint that they used to listen when they were young. And the composer, Emiliano Branda, long-term collaborator, who also composed Metal Operette and the score of Speakeasy, made an original composition called Modica Soundtrack, 25 minutes, where you can listen all the influences of not only like more cinematic references that are always present in Marinella's work, but also, of course, all the memories that he received from the inhabitants of Modica, speaking about the Arab influence, the different layers of time of the town. The suite, the Modica Soundtrack, was performed, as you can see now in the image, by over 40 young students of the local high school, music high school. And there was a soprano singer that sang Canto Popolare by Pasolini, that was like chosen in order to highlight, to stress the possibility of the popular cultural production for them to be like a moment of awareness of lower classes, of grassroots activities, and to become aware of the potential that they can have. In order to really stress what the possible is, Marinella decided to have artificial snow falling down the stairs of the church. And so basically, while these young students were playing and the opera singer was singing, there was a snow happening on the 6th of August in Modica. So something completely illogic, but to stress the fact that when people get together, anything is possible, even snowing in Modica in August. There we have the banner that was used in the parade to go from point A to the last part of the performance that lasted for over 3 hours in the public space. And this sentence, is more than one way to be a partisan, was really related to the Italian context, to the idea that partisans are not just those who freed us from fascism during the Second World War, but today we can be partisan in many more ways and be responsible of our collective space, of what we call often common good, or what we share with others. This room is a sort of resource room, and where we tried to make a point about how in previous works of Marinella, protest has always been a form that she looked at in order just to get inspiration sometimes, and other times to really understand how people get together, how a collective body is formed, and how protests really form collective bodies, form gestures, songs, movements. So how it's really, protest is an artistic form in the sense of its possibility to create other forms, to give shape to things. There's a sentence that goes like, the hardest song to write is a protest song, that frames the whole room. So to convey also the fact that there's a struggle behind any song that talk about protest. There's an agency from people that decide to get together and to reclaim a right that they don't have, to work on social injustice. So every work here is coming from different moments in time of Marinella's production. In this case, for instance, with this red frame, Marinella tries to reflect on the structure of the song by having, as you see, this UV print. Every print convey a part of the song. So you have a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, verse. And she tried with these triangles to think of these components of the song as pure forms that they can, let's say, reach another level of communication, and they can become a symbolic element that can speak to many. She specifically worked with vernacular folk songs like Sicilian, Catalan, that were very much used as forms of protest against central power or against dictatorship in the case of the Catalans, or in the case of Sicilian against local boss and local mafias. Another element that is very important is the element of poetry. That was also very much shaping the whole performance that took place here at the Queens Museum. But here we have a sculpture where the verses of Warsan Shire, this Somali-born London-based poet, a very young one, is inspiring Marinella in many of her works, and it's being quoted in her performances because she really has this anti-patriarchal feminist perspective that is extremely important in Marinella's work. One last element that I would point out is the fact that these risograph prints, these small works that you see here, they always carry a sentence that can sum up things that Marinella learned from the communities she worked with. So it's not just a matter of empowering these people, not of course because Marinella empowers them directly, but because she creates platforms through which themselves they can be the authors of their own empowerment. They can become something else for a short amount of time. They can conceive themselves as something else that they would have never thought about before. And these are some of the teachings, some of the lessons that she learned by working with all these people. And that's why she wanted to position them in this big wallpaper with all her drawings that she did with also collecting movements that have inspired. For instance, this comes from the Black Lives Matter movement, or you have others from South American students movement that worked a lot in the last years to have free education and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is the last room. Then we have another room that talks about the School of Narrative Dance. That's also, it's more of a platform where actually you have the possibility to, as a Queens Museum audience member, to be part of a series of activities that continue the School of Narrative Dance long-term project that started since 2013.